What's up, everybody? It's Spencer Alessi, and this is the Esports Narrative. What's up, everybody? This is episode 18 of the Esports Narrative, and I have Daniil Pauley on the show today. He's the production director for the Collegiate Star League. You can find him at CheeseheadLogic on Twitter. Daniil is also a freelance caster and the occasional streamer. So check out his stream at twitch.tv at CheeseheadLogic. Daniil, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on and spending some time with us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me, Spencer. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what your esports narrative, what's your story, and how did you get into esports, and how did you become to be the production director for CSL?
Well, in the gaming sphere, before even the word esports comes to mind, there was the gaming aspect where just ever since I was like a little kid, like I was actually born in Russia. And at 5 years old, I got handed this, I guess, Russian ripoff of the Nintendo system. It's called the Dendy, like a Dendy the Dota player. But it was called the Dendy, and basically it was just all the Nintendo and Super Nintendo games put into that system, and it was like the same cartridges, stuff like that. So I've been playing like since Contra, Tanks 1990, like all of these different games. So I've had like basically games in my hands since I was like a little baby. But as growing up and stuff like that, continued playing all sorts of games. When I was a teenager, started getting into PC a little bit more, and before even esports, always had kind of a bit of a competitive streak and never knew I was doing stuff that was kind of esportsy, whether it was hosting like FIFA tournaments, Madden tournaments, playing with friends online with CS1.6, Warcraft 3, obviously the customs in there, Dota 1. So there was a lot of esportsy kind of leadway before I even got into it. So eventually got into college, and in college got friends that invited me to go to a game launch for StarCraft 2. Never played StarCraft 1. My only RTS experience was Warcraft 3, and I had no clue what the hell I was about to get into. Got StarCraft 2, sat down, game was the most intimidating thing ever, played 4v4, tried to avoid 1v1 to my best ability, and then eventually kind of stepped away from the game for a few months. Came back the following year in 2011 at a LAN with some friends, and they taught me some build orders, or at least the concept of build orders and stuff like that. And from there, I kind of started picking up the game a little bit more, got more interested. They showed me the professional scene with esports, so Artosis, Tasteless, GSL, all that competitive league. And it was the most fascinating thing I remember, because it just like hit me. I was there at about, I think, 3 a.m. my time, local, and I'm watching this Korean tournament of StarCraft 2 professional players. There's a Korean pop concert going on right before it, which already sold me on it. And then on top of that, you got to see these amazing games. You got to hear incredible commentary, and I'm like, oh, this is actually a thing. I'm like, wow, I could actually maybe do this, at least on the player side. So originally on the esports side of it, wanted to become a player, and wanted to go professional in StarCraft 2 in between everything I was doing. As we trained and grinded a lot of hours, and got to meet some of the better competition in North America and as well across kind of the globe, we realized that it probably wasn't the best course to take in terms of trying to go professional, at least as a player. But we started doing streaming around that time, and people started kind of tuning in for commentary. It was kind of interesting, and kind of got into that and saw that as maybe another way that I could facilitate streaming or be a commentator or somewhere along those lines where I can involve myself in esports. But the whole gaming esports sphere really interested me at that time. And then kind of in that same year, 2011, I was broadcasting kind of an open tournament with Team Liquid. It was a Team Liquid Open of some sort, and I had a player by the name of Demaga from Ukraine playing in it. I hopped into the lobby for the game, and at that point in time in the tournament, the players were not allowed to stream their games, and the casters were only able to cast on a delay. So basically, he didn't want to stream his games. I gave him my stream link if people wanted to watch it. He tweeted it out. All of a sudden, I have this influx of moon runes of characters in my chat, and I'm like, oh, I know this language. I'm like, it's Russian. And for those who don't know, I'm bilingual. I was born in Russia, and so I started interacting with them, talking with them, and so all of a sudden I just got introduced to this enormous new community across the globe and kind of got reattached to my Russian roots in a sense through esports. And so from there on out, from 2011 until about 2014, I did bilingual commentary for StarCraft 2 in English and in Russian, and kind of dabbled as well with games like Dota 2, CSGO, and in that time sphere, at least when I got involved with CSL, was in late 2012. I was looking for casting opportunities as anybody else would, kind of at the amateur ranks, and saw that as another great location. And especially for me, I love sports. I love the college space in sports, and the collegiate side of it always had a very close connection to it. And so I saw this as like a great opportunity. I'm like, oh my God, like this could be sort of like an NCAA opportunity-esque type of thing. And it was interesting. Obviously, I was glad I got an opportunity to do it, got to cast, got to go to one of my first few live events as well later that year. I think it was early in 2013 in Los Angeles. And so from there, it kind of took off and started casting for CSL regularly. And eventually, the production director in late, or I guess mid-2015, ended up leaving for a good position at Twitch. Tim Young, shout-outs to him. I love that guy. And at that point, I kind of stepped in and naturally grew into the position mid-season, and then the following year took the full-time spot.
Nice. So what is it that a production director does?
Well, it depends, really. On the best way to say it depends, because each organization has its own priorities, and as well kind of how they function and what they do. For us specifically, because we're majority, I would say about 90 to 95% online. A lot of what I do is making sure game plan the whole outlook of kind of video content for the year. So mainly streams. So what that includes, how are we going to do it? What days are we going to do it? What times are we going to do it? What games are going to fill those slots? What teams can we have in those positions? Then comes the side of actually executing it in terms of producing video content prior to graphical content. You're looking at making sure to coordinate with all the casters, coordinating with all the players, the captains, the coordinators, the teams, making sure that everything is updated, accurate, making sure that all the content is going out to YouTube, making sure social media is running well at times. Even though we have a social media department, a lot of the times, because we do run more on the evening side of it, we do have to contribute, at least on the production side, a little bit more to the social media side, so that's kind of another aspect. Obviously, there's also hiring casters, so taking time right now, especially as we're about to get into the fall season, we're going to be opening up casting positions. So I got to go through a list of all the casters that have applied. So, looking through VODs, looking to see how well they fit. With the CSL, obviously there's things, that you have to look out for like gear, internet, their experience running, shows, transitions, stuff like that, because again, with everybody that applies, we have people apply that have said, I've never casted and have never done this before, and I just wanted to give it a try to the people that have done actual, like, real good tournament, been in big major tournaments. So you have to kind of balance that out and see who fits where, and see if there's people that you want to approach as a bit of a dev project, or people that you have a lot of potential that you see, or do you want to just run the road of trying to take your best that are applying and try to run with them and see if they can fit. But there's a lot of scheduling, I would say. Scheduling and coordinating would probably be the two biggest things, at least right now with the position.
Yeah. Now, what does esports mean to you, and why is it so exciting right now?
For me, esports is a competitive outlet that is not sports, really. I used to be a 3, depending what time of year, 4-sport athlete at some point in time, and I've always been just competitive in everything I do. I want to win. I want to compete. I'm like one of those tryhards. So like, when you're playing in a game and somebody's just like, dude, who cares? I don't care if we lose. I'm like, what? Like, how dare you?
They won't give up at all costs.
I'm like, we got people AFKing in fountains and quitting. I'm just like, what the hell is going on with all of you? Like, I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, why did I just queue up ranked if everybody's just going to quit? I'm like, imagine in sports if people did that. So like, basically, I'm not as much of an athlete as I used to be, but because of the interest and kind of the game side of it that I've always had on me, I've transitioned a lot of that competitiveness into games. And then for me, and I think a lot of people, I think it's a great outlet for competitiveness. as much as people look at it maybe as, big next, sporting type of approach where there's big money, sponsors, productions involved. I think for a majority of the people, they just want to play and compete in games. And there's a lot of people that were athletes and gamers or athletes that transitioned into something else. And this is another thing that's a great competitive outlet for them.
Yeah, for me, I've always loved video games, and as much as I love role-playing games and storylines and things like that, there's nothing that beats just playing against another person and just knowing that you were able to defeat them or even lose. It's the feeling that keeps you coming back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the thing where I started with StarCraft 2. It's a 1v1 game. Like, it is all your fault. Like, obviously people can blame David Kim and Valve's teams and stuff like that, but man, that game is a game of consequences. Every decision you make is your fault, basically. If it goes wrong or if you get killed, it is your fault. So that's the thing I fell in love with, and it kept driving me back because you needed to improve. There was always room to improve too as well. You had to put in the time, you had to put in the work and practice, and so every win, every skill bracket that you kind of jumped, it was a really huge feeling that you had. It was incredible. So yeah, that competitive side is just one of those things that even to this day drives me, even though I feel like I play as much as I used to just because of the production position and other things also as well in life. But there's always that drive. I'm just like, damn, I got to play ranked, whether it's Dota, whether it's StarCraft, whether it's CS:GO. I'm just like, I got to play it competitive. I can't play on ranked. I can't, play casually. I want to maybe sometimes sit down and play an RPG after 6-7 months of grinding CSL work, but most of the time I'm just like, gotta play competitive, gotta hit the button.
Yeah, it's that competitive need that we really, people who are super competitive in nature really strive for. And, with competition and the competitiveness of esports, there's success and there's failure, there's rises and there's failures. What do you think is the number one reason people fail to succeed in esports?
Number one reason they've been able to succeed in esports, I would say.
Let's start with the number one reason people fail, and then we'll switch gears and we'll talk about how do you overcome that.
Okay. Number one reason, I don't know if there's an exact great answer for number one reason people fail, but I think they overshoot their expectations. Just in the general sense right now, whether if you're a player or if you are a position of any sort, say you're on a production team or some kind of esportsy job role, they shoot their, I want to say, dreams too high on day number one. They think that just 1 day or 2 days or 3 days of this work that they do or that whatever they attempt, they're just going to find success. People are going to love them, or they're going to improve so heavily that they're going to be able to compete against the pros. It's that kind of thought process that you see in Twitch chat a lot of times where people sit there and they're like, I could beat this guy, or I could do this job, or people, that say that if something minorly goes wrong with production, they're just like, man, what a shitty job everybody's doing right there. I bet I could do better. Just a lot of people think that they're capable of doing a lot better or doing more or are more talented than they maybe actually are, or maybe expected to be sooner achieved than they actually expect. And that's especially a big thing with like CSL is we're very grassroots, we're independent, and we're not exactly a professional league, say like ESL, so we have to yearly go through a sort of a growing pain process of improving, adding games, understanding format, adminning, how to improve broadcasts, making sure that everything that we do is also within budget, and there are a lot of complications along the road, but that's kind of the process of what makes us very kind of in tune with what we do, with who we work, and how we approach everything. So, but I think a lot of it is just overshooting expectations or setting them unbelievably high. I guess over-evaluation, maybe that would be the better term to use. And as you see that in esports, companies especially are being overvalued, and just people, I think, are expecting a little bit more than a lot of what esports is ready for at the current moment.
Yeah. What's been the worst moment for you in esports, and how did you maybe overcome that?
Oh, man. This one, I don't know if it's the worst moment exactly, but it definitely kind of put me into the dumps emotionally. And I think it was 2013, I got invited to broadcast at DreamHack Moscow, and it would have been my first major tournament I would have done. because I am a dual citizen and I was in the process of renewing my Russian passport, I was not allowed to get a visa. And just in general, because I've been a Russian citizen, I'm not allowed to get a visa. And so right in that weird time frame block of my passport arriving about a month and a half late for this event, I was not able to attend this event to broadcast, and I'm like generally pretty uppity. I'm never ever like depressed. I'm never emotionally down, like those things. But for like a couple days, I was just shot. I mean, it was like one of those things where I considered it like a really big break for me, and it just completely missed it. And so for a couple days, I was really down in the dumps, and then eventually realized that it's just one event. I'm still young. I have a lot of time. There's still stuff I got to cast even the rest of the week, and even the days after that tournament, there's things to do. So kind of picked back up, continued streaming, continued casting, found more events, and realized that it's a grind, it's a process. A lot of times with esports, it is hard work and effort, but it is also right place, right time. But as long as you focus on that hard work and effort, I think you improve your chances to put yourself in that right position as well. So that was kind of the mentality. It's kind of get back after it, start grinding again. Like you're going to find yourself in a better position, or you're going to find more opportunities at some point. There's no reason to just kind of give up or get really down over this too much.
Yeah, those are some really great lessons learned, and something that everybody can really take away from that is just to get back on the horse, so to speak, and just continue on, and learn from your mistakes, but don't give them too much respect.
Exactly. Yep.
What's been one of the biggest accomplishments for you so far?
Biggest accomplishments for me, and my friends are going to dispute this because it was during an awkward season of ladder, but I did hit Grandmaster in 2011 in StarCraft 2. I think that was a fairly good achievement on my part, and just because I think StarCraft and now playing Brood War, both these games are just insanely tough and hard. There's in games and MOBAs and shooters and other games, there's concepts that obviously take a lot of skill and learning in the process to become a great player, but goddamn, StarCraft and StarCraft 2, they are so hard, so much action needed, so much thought process, so much tactics, constant action. There's no really breaking point. There's no resting. If you're planning to be a good player, you got to be really deep into the game. And I think that was really amazing. Another one for me would probably be actually our finals event recently in Toronto that we did for the CSL. I think we took our whole crew up to a different country, and in a situation that we weren't really prepared for, we did a show, or basically we did our finals in a movie theater, which wasn't exactly equipped for an event that we were trying to do particularly, or everything that we were prepared for, so we had to really on the fly adjust and put on as best of a show as we could with what we had at the time and the budget that we had that was kind of remaining at that point. So I was really proud of everybody that was involved in that production and that event. I think that was really big for us.
Now, how can we, as people in the esports industry or those looking to get in the industry, where's the opportunity for someone to make a career or to stream or to play professionally? Where's the opportunity, and how can someone kind of capitalize on the excitement of esports right now?
Everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. There is not like one spot, not one role where you're a streamer, a caster, a graphics artist, a admin. There's just so many roles still available, and as more organizations are building up, getting financing and making these roles not your just typical volunteering or part-time. There's actual full-time roles now involved as well. You can actually make a career out of it. You see websites for gamers, trying to build websites. You have admins. I'm trying to think. You need observers. You need casters. You need streamers. You need pretty much everything. You need community people. That's actually a huge thing. Leadership, I think, is still a big issue in esports, especially with teams and organizations. Leadership is a big issue, and people of voice as well that can properly handle, I guess, PR and as well be that kind of organizing force. And kind of in the collegiate side of it, sorry, I'm kind of running on a bit of a tangent on this one, but
no, you're fine.
On the collegiate side of it, a lot of these teams, their biggest problem is organizational and scheduling side of things. So having like a team manager around. When we try to do productions for these regular season games, our biggest flaw right now is just running into scheduling issues with teams, and a lot of it's last second because most of these guys are just individual members. Nobody's actually taking a leadership role. They just come and play. And so when we tell them, hey, you have a broadcasted live match on this day and time, they kind of mark it down, but they don't really realize it until the day of. And then they're like, oh, I got a class. Oh, I've got an exam. Oh, I had this, whatever conflict in the way, and we can't participate. And we're just like, oh, okay, well, that kind of shoots our day a little bit in the dumps. It would have been nice at least if you let us know maybe, even a few hours ahead of time, so we could have had a little bit more time to prep and adjust or do something a little bit different. But there isn't enough people, or at least competent enough people with leadership that are willing to take managerial type of roles or community heads or some sort of position that has somebody organizing and kind of leading in a sense.
Yeah.
Not enough of that. Not enough initiative for that either.
Yeah. Now this is the part of the show I call the 5-question combo breaker. It's
I'll go for
button mashing. The button mashing section of the show.
Gonna crack my fingers. All right.
Yeah, let's go. What's the best advice someone has ever given you?
Best advice, I think there's the best advice, honestly, for me is there's consequences for every decision. Just because you have to realize that you have to think before you do, sort of in a sense. There's a consequence for everything, and if you understand that consequence and you're okay with it, then go on ahead with it. Where you're willing to take that risk, or so to say. So there's a lot of times where getting into esports side, I've had a lot of, especially on the family side, criticism, and there's consequences for every decision you make. If you're going to go ahead with whatever this is. Just understand, there could be, drawbacks for this, and that was kind of one of those things where I'm just like, once you feel that comfort, you're like, I'm going to go for it. I understand the consequence. You just, you kind of took it head on, and you feel a lot better.
What do you think the esports industry needs to continue to grow and be successful?
Ooh, that's a good one. Off the top of my head, I would say probably helping kids bridge education and real life aspects with the gaming side of it. I feel like right now still we're in a process where too many people feel like the need to go pro right away or give up their whole life to go pro, and they kind of skip out on the education or a little bit lazier on the educational side of it. And as well also the real life aspects of, whether it's paying rent, apartment shopping, taxes, loans, yada yada, like the whole aspect of like outside of education, the real life aspects, like taking care of your own self, being self-sustaining, understanding the outside world. There needs to be more education on that, whether it's the leagues or it's the schools or the school programs that are in esports or somewhere along those lines. We need more education on the outside world, because I feel like still in esports and in gaming we don't have too many high functioning adults, unfortunately. But that would be my those would be my two big ones.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's part onus on organizations if you have pro players, or if you're an amateur team or a collegiate team, do you think it's part onus on the organizations to kind of help foster that, either that culture or give opportunities to learn things outside of playing a specific game?
Yes, I say that hesitantly a little bit, just because I know there's, players that are in their 20s and sometimes 30s, so you don't want to exactly always be ready to provide that for adults, because at that point, and considerably, they should be self-sustaining. But with a lot of esports, there's a lot of youth, and we're talking teenagers to early 20s that have yet to experience any life of any sort. I mean, most kids, all the way through high school, they live with their parents, even some through college, and they don't actually get to experience the outside world in any way, shape, or form, unfortunately. And because of that, if they're just jumping from that into a team atmosphere, they don't still continue they don't continue to learn, how to live on the outside world. They're basically getting fostered again by another family. They're not being independent, or they don't understand the approach of outside life. Everything's sort of being catered and taken care of for them. So yes, I think the teams could probably do a little bit of a better job, especially for the younger players, but is it necessary for the teams to do it? No. I feel like there are other avenues, whether it's school, whether it's, other educational programs that could help them approach this. Yeah.
What's the best play you've ever seen, or the most memorable moment for you in esports?
Ooh, there's a lot. There are a lot. I have two favorites just off the top of my head, and I'm probably missing like 10,000 others. But MVP and Squirtle in the GSL finals when there was just mass battle cruisers and sky toss, and there was vortexes all over the place. One of the most epic finals I think I have ever seen for StarCraft 2. And then one of my favorite games was. It was Navi versus I'll have to look it up, but I think it was Navi versus OG. No, not Navi or OG. IG. I think it might have been IG, Invictus Gaming. But it was at the time when in Dota 2 where there was fountain hooks, and this was the dirtiest, cheapest strat I think in Dota 2 at that time in place. Chen had this ability to recall allied heroes into the fountain. And what you would do is you would cast the that allied teleport back to the fountain on Pudge, and Pudge would throw the hook, time it out, so that way when the hook lands, he would be teleporting back to the fountain. And so you just see these cheap-ass hooks that would rip players on the opponent's team all the way back to the fountain. all the way back to your fountain, and the fountain would obviously, because of the DPS, would just rip heroes apart. And so Navi was incredibly behind at the start of this game, and they just started fountain hooking in the middle of the game and ended up coming back. I was losing my mind at how hilarious and awesome it was all at the same time. But yeah, those were my two kind of outstanding ones as of recent.
Nice. What is one specific action step that anybody could take today to get started in esports?
Hands-on. Get hands-on in whatever you want to try, and don't be scared to try different things. A lot of people that work in esports did not come in with an esports mentality of, hey, I want to do this role, and I prepped years for it, or I took college classes for it, or, whatever you do, just don't be shy to get hands-on. If you want to start streaming right now, because you're going to have to learn, what kind of tech you have. You're going to have to learn how settings work, how audio, how video works, how frame rate, how everything looks. Because that you'll have to, go into the dashboard side of it, understand that. You'll have to learn promotional side of it, interaction, and there's a whole process of just just by trying to do something like streaming, you're going to learn like 5 other things. If you're going to admin, if you want to, try admin, go try adminning for a tournament. Tournaments always need admins or are looking for help of some sort. You're going to learn, how to properly set brackets. You're going to learn how to communicate with players. You're going to learn how to approach certain aspects of, sort of the social contract with people and work with people that might have different languages as their first language. So there, in the process of anything that you do, you're going to learn a hell of a lot by just doing hands-on. Do not wait. Just start. Try something. Don't be shy. Majority and almost, I think, everybody in esports started at ground zero just trying something and trying different things. That's a big part for me as well, is I've been through probably the ringer of different positions. I'm kind of a little bit of a Swiss knife. I've been the streamer. I've been the caster. I've been an admin. I've been kind of a tournament production person or approach. I've done all these different things in esports. And I just went on ahead and tried it. I've even done writing. God, I've done writing. I've done all these different things. And so it's cool that you learn kind of the approach and how to do all these things. So just get hands on it. Get hands on. And I think a lot of people that work in esports, if you're trying to work your way up and looking for a position, they'll notice if you put in the work, if you're hands-on. There's nobody right now that's looking, I think, for 4 years degree in this, and and if you've gotten no hands work, that's cool. Like, people want to see that you've done, you put your hands on in esports or gaming, or you've done something to put the effort to learn to what you're trying to do in some way, shape, or form. So just get after it.
Do you think it's valuable, as an aside to that, do you think it's valuable to, if you're just getting started in esports, say you don't have any experience, do you think it's valuable to you to do work for free to get started?
Yes, but only to an extent. I think you need to, this is part of actually working and getting hands-on. You'll begin to learn kind of self-value and self-worth of what your product is and what you do. And so I think there are things that you can, especially if you're brand new to it. So say you want to be, a tournament admin. You've never done it before and you don't really have a clue what's going on or have an idea, kind of a starting point. That might be a place where you might want to be as like a volunteer and kind of shadow or get some help help and support, like learning across that way. If you've been casting for a while, and you get invited to go to a live event and they want to just, do it for free, I would question that. I would say,
Right.
check your self-worth. You might be actually valuable to that company for whatever you're doing. So I think it really just depends on understanding your self-worth, your position, and sort of how much experience you have. I would say part of that, going back to the very beginning, that over-expectation, don't expect, to walk in as a day one tournament admin and ask for, $2,000 a day to run a bracket. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. So I would say, just kind of keep an eye out on that.
Yeah, that's really sound advice. What's one daily habit that's been the biggest factor for your success?
Oh God, that's really tough to say, because I feel like a lot of times I've just been kind of around the scene, so I'm just kind of keeping up all the time with esports and news and trying to make sure I read and kind of have an idea of what's going on and kind of have my ground to the ear, have my ear to the ground, have my ear to the ground, have my ground to the ear right there, that might be the one big thing, because just I have to work with so many games, especially with the CSL. I always kind of need to know what's going on with every other game, what kind of updates, what kind of patches, what kind of tournaments are running, what kind of productions, how they look, what players like to see. So I kind of have to keep in tune with every single game and everything that's going on. I don't get the luxury anymore of just like back in the day of hanging out just in the StarCraft 2 community and focusing obnoxiously hard just on StarCraft 2. I have to keep up with everything, but in return that does allow me to produce and approach every game with a lot more comfort come season time. Yeah,
that's really good advice because, it's kind of like you're a student of the industry. You're immersing yourself in the industry and, like you said, not just one game, and it kind of helps you pick up things, just that much easier.
I would personally encourage everybody to start following in more communities. I know there's a lot of people that sit in their like little corners of their streams or of their games. But man, you start looking in other communities and seeing, the type of competitors that they have, the tournaments that they run, the passion that they have, the approaches that they have. You learn so much more, and it kind of begin to appreciate the whole spectrum of gaming and esports. And for one of the biggest ones for me recently was Super Smash, and the tournaments that they run, the communities that they have. God damn, I love them. They're so much fun to be around, and as well just to watch. I think they're some of the greatest tournaments, and I feel like I skipped out on it for too many years. Just being too much into the PC side of things, but now, I mean, man, I'm trying to be everywhere, and you learn there's a lot of great people, great stories, and a lot of great talent, and all across the board. So yeah, just don't be shy to check out other communities, or kind of hop out of your own community for a little bit. It's fun.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I had James Chen on, who's very well known in the fighting game community, a couple episodes ago, and he just opened my eyes to the world that is the fighting game community, and there's so much energy and the excitement in the fighting game community, and the personalities is just really awesome to see, and it's very unique to that niche of esports. It's unlike other games. It's really, really cool to see.
No, I agree with you completely, 100%.
Now we'll close out the show with you giving us a little bit of your wisdom on what your life would look like if you're just getting started. Let's say you're just getting started today in esports. What would your life look like 30, 60, 90 days or a year from now if you were just getting started?
Oh, man. First thing, I'd be like, shit, that's which partnership's going to be really hard to get now, compared to 2011. I come in it now. I think I would look at the whole perspective of I think everything that's going on in esports, again, sports is a big motivator and a driver for me for a lot of concepts, ideas, and kind of initial points of where I can come in. Commentating would be obviously one of them. Another one would be kind of operating or organizing. So I think I would find myself probably organizing some tournaments or just kind of creating leagues of some sort, or maybe finding myself anyways into a commentating position. I don't know if streaming would be a big thing anymore, if I had to restart it, but we would have to definitely kind of be on the organizational side, because even before the whole esports thing, that's kind of where I was doing. I was already organizing tournaments and kind of building up a bit of an esports concept or idea or base before even it began. 30, 60, 90 days out, I would, man, it's tough to say. I would be hoping that I would be able to try to match and understand all the formats and hopefully produce a good tournament and grab sponsors and create this big old shebang. Probably, I would probably end up I would honestly probably end up over evaluating and trying to set expectations really high. But yeah, fortunately, just because I've been around, definitely know, probably now would just kind of approach it a little bit differently. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been a lot of fun. Why don't you share where the listeners can engage with you online and where they can, interact and check you out?
Sure. You can find me whining on Twitter probably a lot at CheeseheadLogic. I spend a lot of my time there, and just because kind of health's getting better and schedule's getting set for the fall, I'm probably going to come back to streaming a little bit part time on the off hours when I'm not working. So Twitch TV /CheeseheadLogic, and those would probably be the main two right there.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on the show. I super appreciate it, and I know that this one will be very much liked by the listeners. There's a lot of good info in this, and I just really appreciate you taking some time and coming on the show.
Feel free to invite me anytime, man. That was fun. Glad to be on.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your esports narrative with the listeners. And with that, I just want to remind everyone that if this all goes as planned, this show is just the beginning. Thank you, listeners. I really appreciate you. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating on iTunes. I would love a 5-star, but if you think I deserve a 1, let me have it and tell me why.